you. I close my eyes.
Greetings, my name is Jesse. I'm going to attempt to do a simple video essay on why mental illness develops. The reason for it is to empower people with information, to get them to see that these are natural processes, and it's not a reason to be, disheartened or to enter a state of hopelessness. There is reason to believe that we do have the necessary personal skills to confront the challenges of life as life presents them to us. And the first thing I want to do is go to my tile on the introduction, and I wrote down some simple concepts which I will review and discuss. The first thing is it is important to understand that we have to be kind to ourselves. If we're living a life that we don't necessarily want, or is troubling us, or is leading us to want to have change, it is helpful that we understand that we need to be our own best friend, and we need to be kind to ourselves, and we need to do things for our own healthy reasons, understanding that what we're going to do is reshape and restructure our thought processes, our emotions, with the intent of having a better life. Okay, and I go on to say that most of the time we cannot confront our own fears because we are afraid of the pain and suffering that we experience as soon as we try to have a good look at our lives. And unfortunately, after we go through so many traumas, so many changes, so many difficulties in our life, what ultimately happens is that we become afraid of fear. And in the instance that we even attempt to review our life, that panic that comes from fear overwhelms us, and we stop looking at our lives. Okay, and I gotta pay more attention. I noticed this yesterday. I tried to do this. Let me see what I was trying to say. I would like the members of the audience to start looking at what is good in life. See, we spent a lot of time on the negativity, and that's how we built up this angst, this pain, and suffering, this hurt. And now we gotta invest in what's positive. Okay. Now I do not mean that we are confident we can believe in something. I really do have to pay attention when I do these tiles. We have convinced ourselves that things are hopeless. We did it with our own thoughts. Yes, we confronted life, and life presented overwhelming challenges, and those overwhelming challenges led to ideas of negativity that we keep trying and we keep failing, and then we convinced ourselves that when we keep trying, we're just going to fail. Okay, there are things in life that we're not going to be able to do. That doesn't mean life is over. Life has a lot of great things to offer. Okay, and I'm going to move into that in a little while. Let me finish this up. We can also convince ourselves that there is a reason of hope. If we convinced ourselves that it's hopeless, we can also convince ourselves that there's reason to hope. Every single person has the ability to think, organize, plan, and act. And when we set manageable goals and we achieve those goals, we grow in confidence. And as we grow in confidence, our self-esteem improves. So we can adopt a better attitude and start to see how we can set manageable goals and then start working on achieving those goals. And as we achieve those goals, we'll start to see that life is pleasing and enjoyable and attractive. Okay, and I'll just add a bit of personal reference. My life is not what I want it to be today, and it's not. I'm blessed. Thank you, Jesus. In the business that I am, it provides the money that I need to live the life that I want to live. Not only that, it gives the opportunity to work for Jesus Christ, because if you ride in my taxi, you're going to hear Christian radio. Now that upsets some people, but some people like it. And it starts to plant the seed of the Holy Spirit in them, and they start to see that there's a better way in life. And then the hope is that they'll continue to want that pleasantness, that kindness that comes through the radio, and it's reflective of who Jesus Christ is. Okay, and And as I'm going through this process of wondering why it is that I'm even alive, or if I'm doing anything that has any meaningful purpose, to deal with that, because I do have anxiety and I do have a depression. I've many times I've said that I suffer from chronic fatigue and major depression, but I concentrate on simple, healthy pleasures of life, such as friends, family, good meals, pleasant music, healthy entertainment. Okay, um, I'm moving away from. I find this strange, but I'm moving away from Hollywood blockbusters because it's garbage, it's vulgarity. I mean, the last thing that I was evaluating was the film Christmas Office Party with one of the actresses from Friends. I forget her name right now, and it was vulgarity. There's just no reason to see it. If you like comedy, this is vulgar. This is not comedy. They've gone over the edge. So I find it difficult. I find it interesting that I'm looking for family-oriented romantic movies from sources as Hallmark or Christian movies, that have a different message, that have a positive message, and that's something that helps me. It's I can when let me finish this so I can move on to the next tile. And in order to, I said, however, I concentrate on simple, healthy pleasures of life, such as friends, family, good meals, pleasant music, healthy entertainment, etc., in order to deal with my harsh emotions, and it helps. Instead of sitting there, in my vehicle, I can fill the time with pleasant things. I have music. I've created my own, what I call my digital DJ, where I have all the songs that I like from women artists. If you listen to radio, it's overwhelmed with male artists and not much attention. But I like the romantic. I like the moody. Amy Winehouse, Celine Dion. Trying to think of who else. Faith Hill. And that's what I do. And movies are a big part of it. I'm at a point in time in my life where I say, well, maybe I could date and find that special friend. Okay. And I wanted to go through that. This first tile is just, it's important to understand that we can either be our best friend and we can help ourselves and we can start focusing on what's good in life, or we can keep the same cycle of negativity. And in the discussion as to how do mental illnesses develop, a lot of it has to do how we have viewed the events of our life. And if you pay attention to television, music, movies, web pages, commentary from so-called famous people, you'll realize that it's all basically negative. Okay, and it's been a program in development. I started looking at what I believe was contributing to pain and suffering in people's life that was leading to mental illness. And as I was writing, little by little, I was honing this philosophy of life. I call it positive psychology. And I've written several articles on it, and the one where I basically just, in a generic form, put down all the themes and elements and topics and subtopics. I start with fun. Well, actually, I start with God, because God is the true source of peace and love and pleasantness and kindness, and you're not going to find an angry God, at least not the God that I believe in. But after that is fun. See, we've forgotten how to have fun. We have been beat up by life, and we have convinced ourselves that everything is bad, but there's still access to good, wholesome entertainment, good music, literature, good meals, good friends, family members. And I always make the point to state that we want to concentrate. Excuse me, I've said before, the more I talk, the more I cough. And I'm not going to let that be an impediment. I think I have a solution, and I'm going to try to work on it. But as I go to this tile, I move from my introduction to this, titled Positive Psychology. And I said positive psychology is having a positive attitude. And that's what it is. We spend too much time being negative. And when we're negative, we hurt ourselves. Okay. Most of our bad emotions come from our bad thoughts. And again, excuse me for not paying that much attention to the English. I should have edited. Every time I write an article, I edit it. I start from the end and work my way to the beginning and fix all the commas and it's misspelling, missing words. I didn't do that this time, apparently. Okay, and then I go on to say we should be hopeful and optimistic because we can think, organize, plan, and act, and we do. And we use these skills to develop a negative attitude. Well, if we use these skills to develop a negative attitude, we can also use these skills to develop a positive attitude. Okay? And it's important that when we're going to experience, if we have gotten to the state where we're, as soon as we want to look at things that we want to change in our life, we enter into a state of panic, then, and I didn't make a towel for that, but that's okay, I'll explain it here. We need to do what I practice, with relaxation therapy, and it's just breathing, slowing down the heart rate, stopping the blood flow. So the mind doesn't get overwhelmed with blood flow. When our mind gets overwhelmed with blood flow, our brain, we're unable to concentrate. Okay? Anxiety speeds up the heart. That's that sensation we're feeling, our racing heart, accompanied by thoughts and bad emotions. So we would want to relax. And once we relax, we want to evaluate our emotions, you know. And the way we evaluate our emotions, we say, is this a legitimate emotion? Am I feeling this because something is going on in my life and this is appropriate? We're human beings. Fear is appropriate under the appropriate circumstances. Love is appropriate under the appropriate circumstances. And then once we learn to relax, we start managing our emotions, then we start restructuring our thoughts and moving away from the negative and moving towards the positive. Life has a lot of good things to offer. It does have music. It has good meals, it has friends, family, opportunities. As far as employment or business, we have pleasant entertainment and many other enjoyable elements, you know. It is wrong to drink 3 liters of Coke, but there's nothing wrong with drinking a can of Coke a month. It's an enjoyable, pleasurable experience. And that's what we need to start looking at. Now, part of positive psychology is being realistic. But realistic isn't going around saying my life sucks, why should I bother? Realistic is being grateful for what we have and using what we have to enjoy life. If you have a radio, you can find a pleasant radio station. If you have a computer attached to the internet, I'm limited by what's available because radios come commercial, and it's a lot of commercials, and it's like they all have one CD, and it's a CD of Madonna, and I'm trying to remember of who else, but it really doesn't matter, you know. So you get bored listening to this stuff over and over again. But there's many resources where we can find enjoyable, pleasant music. If we like classical music, romantic music, country and western music, there's phones. There's also our computers, our laptops, and tablets. Okay, so realism is being grateful for what we have and using it to enjoy life. Now, the subject of this is how do they develop? How do mental illness develop? And this is an my hope is through information I could empower the person to be kind to him or herself, to stop blaming themselves for what's going on. Okay, a lot of life you didn't ask for. You know, nobody wakes up and says I want to be depressed. Okay, there are influences to that, but because we're in control of our thoughts, we can make a difference. Now, the first towel in discussing the development of mental illnesses is biology. Some of us, unfortunately, were born with bodies that are our own worst enemies. We don't want to be depressed. We don't want to be overwhelmed with anxiety. But our brain chemistry contributes to that depression, contributes to that anxiety. Okay? And I started this by saying for some of us, our own bodies are our own worst enemies. And that's a reality. Okay? I go on to say the rambling and unorganized thoughts and emotions have to do with a chemical imbalance in our brains. When I try to do this and then I realized that the sound was cutting out, I was talking about a documentary I had seen about the subject was that corporations that deal with pharmaceuticals are poisoning us and basically convincing us that we need their products. And one of the statements they made in this documentary is that there's no such thing as chemical imbalance. And I know from personal experience, my personal experience, and having conversations with other people, is that there is a chemical imbalance. Now, when I was meditating on writing an article, I asked myself, is the chemical imbalance something that's just there, or did we create it with our anxiety and our depression after having gone through many events of trauma, abuse, disappointment? Okay? But we need to understand that it's not our fault that we have a defective body that produces more or less neurotransmitters than we need in life. That's the big thing here. We need to relax, and we need to stop holding ourselves responsible. If we don't do anything, if we refuse to look at our lives, then we are responsible. Okay? The good news is that we can control these uncomfortable emotions with relaxation, which I already spoke to. And it just basically says relaxation is controlling our breathing and clearing our mind of all thoughts. Now, using the principles of psychology, we can help reduce our pain and suffering. I know this to be true because I personally do it. I focus on what's good. I focus on what's decent. God is a big part of my life. I go out into a world in a combat zone. People are angry. People are upset. People are gritting their teeth. And many of my customers, exhibit a disappointment or a bad attitude towards me. And I don't let it get to me. Okay? And I just to stay on focus. Okay? To me, it begins with biology, with our bodies. But we can relax. We can organize our thoughts, and we can minimize the effects of what our own body is doing to us. Okay. Now the reality is, and a lot of mental health issues are directly related to the abuse they received as children. Whatever. It overwhelms me to think that a child would be used as a punching bag or sexually abused. That's why I don't go into it that much. But I think all of us can use our mind to understand abuse. Disaster. This can be a permanent reaction like repression, trying to deny the event or associate emotions, okay? Or it can be something that comes and goes. And when we're stressed out, we're not able to think clearly, and sometimes our thoughts become not only disorganized but troublesome. We're starting to think things about hurting people. We're starting to think about Martians in our brains, or the government controlling our thoughts. Dementia is a chronic or persistent disorder of mental process caused by the brain disease or injury and marked by memory disorders, personality changes, and impaired reasoning. If you've ever worked with senior citizens, they do get highly excitable, and they're being aggressive. To us, it's aggression, but in reality, to them, it's a protective mechanism. Okay? And I finish off by saying, understanding ourselves does not mean we have to experience anxiety. Understanding is empowering. Many people, there's people who could give better lectures than I can. But in our society, there's also people wondering, why is this happening to me? Why can't I control my emotions? Why can't I have a life of peace? Why must I always be suffering? Why must I always be in pain? Why must I always have depression? Why must I always have anxiety? See? And I honestly believe that education empowers people. When we start to realize that these are natural processes that occur because of our thoughts, what we're thinking, then we know that we can do something to change it. Okay? Even if the abuse was rather extreme, we can calm ourselves down. we can start. A lot of soldiers have returned with post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's not a permanent condition that nothing can be done. They're locked in a trauma, and that trauma is leading to delirium and dementia, where they start to view the world in a very skewed way, not in a realistic way, because they were accustomed to being in war, and in war they saw the world as they saw it in war. But today they can see a time of peace, where they're in charge of their emotions, they're in charge of their thoughts, and they can start using the techniques of positive psychology to calm their emotions, to gain a better attitude, to not be afraid of the emotions that are developing that they believe they have no control of, and start little by little, understanding their emotions, having better thoughts, looking for what's good in life, experiencing personal, simple, healthy pleasures of life. I do remember one memory when I was taking my, it wasn't developmental, learning psychology. And one strategy that was taught to children, it wasn't to yell at them, it was to occupy them in a different task. Instead of yelling at them because they're in a task that they don't like, bad behavior, occupy them with good behaviors. So if you're going through something as extreme as post-traumatic stress disorder, it would be helpful to stop focusing on all that negative and start focusing on some positive things. And by focusing on some positive things, you won't have those extreme emotions, and then you'll start to feel good, and you'll start to feel better about life, and you'll have confidence, and you'll start to invest in yourself, not only in your mental health, but in your careers, in your jobs, in your families, in your friendships. Now, the next tile in life, there's abuse, trauma, dementia, delirium, but sometimes there's failures. Sometimes we lose a job. Sometimes a romance doesn't work out. Sometimes a family member dies. Life is filled with failures and disappointments. And it's not that life is filled with failures and disappointment and it's hopeless. That life is filled with failures and disappointments, and we develop a negative attitude by convincing ourselves that there's no reason to try because we've been through so much, and every step of the way we've just been fighting with life, and why continue to bother? Well, we're all being challenged by life. The important part is how we deal with that challenge. Are we going to continue, in the negativity? Or can we put things in perspective? Okay? And putting things in perspective is to say, okay, I lost my job, or this romantic relationship didn't work out, or unfortunately somebody died, somebody close, somebody I love died. These are things we can't change. I used to have conversations with people. I still have conversations with people, but I used to have conversations with people who weren't doing well in their marriage, and who obviously were going down the road of divorce, or had divorced and they couldn't deal with the separation. And I would ask them, try to remember what the relationship was, because there's a reason why the divorce happened. And it's obvious the divorce happened because it was a toxic marriage, and people were fighting, and it was a hostile environment for both people. Neither person could be happy in the home. They were always at opposite corners. Sometimes people are opposite corners. And I asked them, why would you want to go back to that? At least now you know where you made mistakes, and you know where your partner is. In the next relationship, you're better educated to have success in that relationship. Now, I can run you through the paradigm of a healthy marriage, and I'm going to. I remember I did it. I did it. It's a previous video. A long time ago, I did a 5-video series on YouTube. I'm gonna have to take those out and update them. But I just recently did one on how it is important for the wife to be of the spirit of positive psychology, and for the husband to be in the spirit of positive psychology, and both of them being grateful for each other and appreciating each other as a resource that they can use to have fun, entertainment. And I'm not just talking about sex. You know, a romantic partner can make you laugh. A romantic partner can comfort you. A romantic partner can talk to you, be your companion. You know, a romantic partner can help you escape whatever's going on in work. You know, and instead of you focusing on the negatives at work, you can be focusing on the positives of their bright eyes, their smile. You know, the conversation they're engaged in, the comfort. You know, that's a better way. When a wife is healthy, mentally healthy, and a husband is mentally healthy, and there are people who want to dedicate themselves to having fun, then you have a marriage that is not in turmoil, that is not in crisis. See, is not impossible. The only thing is that we have taught ourselves these behaviors that are counterproductive and are unhealthy. I don't care what the marriage is. If you put them in front of me, I can structure a strategy that will save the marriage. Now, will the two people be of the mindset of the spirit to work at being individuals who focus on simple, healthy pleasures of life, like music and literature and friends and family and Christianity, you know, good meals and everything that's good and healthy that life offers? You know, if there are people who can confront their challenges in a positive way, putting things in realistic perspective, being grateful for life, and using what they have in life in order to enjoy life. You know, if there are people who know how to relax, to control their heart rate and blood flow, and so they're able to concentrate when they're looking at their emotions, and figuring out if it's an emotion that is manifested in the mind or it's a realistic emotion. And then, of course, when we realize that it's a realistic emotion, we got to ask ourselves, who's the person that's in charge in this? Is this something that's being done to me? Or is this something that's happening because I'm doing something bad to another person? We have to be a grown-up. We have to be mature. We have to be, we can't be petty. We can't be childish when it comes to our mental health. Bad people need to realize they're bad people, and that people react to them the way they react to them because they are bad people. Okay? And everybody, I'm convinced everybody can use the strategies in positive psychology and have a better life. Everybody. It's just a matter of choice. Will the person do it? And again, the hope for this is to help people understand what's going on, that these are natural processes, so we'll understand that we do have control, that we can change our thoughts, and by changing our thoughts, we can change our emotions, and by changing our emotions, we can change our behaviors. We can contribute to minimizing depression, minimizing anxiety. You know, start to have some achievements, some accomplishments, start feeling good, confident, and as we grow confident, we start improving our self-esteem. Okay. And I'm going to start doing my semesters, the courses that I took at the university. I'm going to start with abnormal psychology and move through abnormal psychology 1 and move through abnormal psychology 2, just to get to people to see the symptomologies, some of the things that the experts recommend, and then compare that to what I call positive psychology, which I know can work for everybody. Thank you for listening, and I wish you well.
Hope it gets through. It's in the language